Hello, coaches, and welcome to this edition of Give and Go Live. My name's David Newbury. I'm the e-learning coordinator for United Soccer Coaches, and I'm joined by my colleague Ian Barker, Director of Coaching Education. Hello, Ian.
Hello, David. Pleasure to be here.
Ian, today's topic is defending cover, and we have the setup of two grids joined together, two squares, in this case 8 yards each side. And we have 4 white players in possession of the ball, the attacking team. And we have an extra white player at the other end of the grid. And the objective for the white players is to keep possession of the ball for 4 consecutive passes before passing the ball to the player at the other end and then shifting to that grid. But our focus on this activity is the red defending team. And we see here we have 2 red defenders to begin, playing pressure and cover. And their objective is to win the ball. And if they win it, to dribble outside of the area. We have also 2 pairs of red defenders that are waiting on deck, ready to give the red defenders a break. So Ian, let's talk about some of the methods we use on this particular activity.
Absolutely. So thank you, David. So the key people, because our topic is cover, we need at least 2 defenders, but we certainly don't need more in this early part of training to establish the principles of pressure and cover. And this information is going to pertain for these 2 reds and these 2 reds when it becomes their turn to join in. Now, having said this is a defensive training session, our 4 whites, or our group of whites, excuse me, have plenty of opportunities for possession and penetration. And as long as they're performing at a fairly good level, and we're encouraging them to perform at a good level, it'll give us a chance to coach our reds. Given that the red cannot go outside the grid, what the red players are essentially trying to do is intercept these passes, get across the line of these passes. And there are a couple of keys. If they defend as 2 individuals, so one presses, but the other one doesn't get across, they're essentially 2 individuals and they'll get played around. If, however, we get some form of pressure and the cover comes very close, they essentially are doing a very similar job and get played around equally. So the trick is not to be 2 individuals, but at the same time, not to become essentially a single entity. Trying to intercept the pass. So for now, if the ball was with this white player, one is pressing, one is trying to get across to intercept. In the case here where the ball has been successfully got across the grid, before he turns, this player would then try to apply pressure, and this player would try to step up in case the ball was going to be played back the way it came from. And what is the key to pressure and cover effectively in a type of activity like this? The 2 keys are communication and how quickly can we respond as the ball travels. So again, communication and then changing roles as the ball travels.
As we progress onto the second diagram, the ball has been transferred from the white team to their target player. And as that has occurred, 3 of the players in white have now moved from the original square into the new square, so that now we have a 4 versus 2 situation as well. We could alternate the players at either end coming on, but instead we've decided to keep the reds out there to make them work a little harder, and maybe we put a limit of 2 or 3 times and then we change over. But here the reds moved over at the same time as the ball moving over, and now the whites are attempting to get 4 more passes before they make their pass to the other end. But in this diagram, as we will see here, the reds have intercepted, they've won the ball, and to score a point, they must dribble outside of the square with the ball to stop the whites getting those 4 passes in.
Yeah, well, the first thing here that is really key and really important for grassroots coaches working with young players, some of whom may be quite inexperienced, is if the 2 reds are successful, the activity does not stop. They must have an objective or a goal that is more than just winning the ball and stopping. So now we're starting to teach elements of transition. In this case, successful defending, transitioning to attack is achieved by dribbling out the grid. It could be to see if you could pass it to one of the other red players. It could be to pass it to a coach, or we put some small goals in. But the key is that should our defenders be successful, they have an objective and they can go on to the attack, if you will. In this particular diagram, if we just look real quick, seems to me that the red player has got across to press this pass. In doing so, it's probably not going to go back to this player, and it becomes very difficult to get to this player. And so consequently, this red here is able to adopt a position of cover that essentially makes this a 2 versus 2, which is the key. If the two defenders can reduce the numerical disadvantage they have, they've done really well here with some communication and movement off the ball.
And then as we're on this diagram, patience is certainly a virtue when it comes to defending. And in this situation, as we see with many young players, in their eagerness to win the ball, they'll start chasing the ball around the field. And against a good opponent, of course, they'll just get played around. Have you got any tips here for coaches working with young players that have that tendency to just keep running and chasing the ball?
Yeah, I think the key would be if you have one player that's very eager to run and chase and one that doesn't choose to participate at all. So you have an imbalance, and you can appreciate why the one might be working extra hard. So the key is, and what does cover mean? Cover means help. So if this player is doing the bulk of the running, this player's job is to help. Help would then mean, if this were a successful pass across, that I now become the chasing player and this partner helps. So help is the least of the physical activities, but these roles are switching all the time. So this has to be expressed in terms of a team, albeit a team of two concept. This is not an individual training activity. This is definitely a partnered activity.
And on the third diagram, let's follow the sequence here, lots of arrows. The player at the top end has passed the ball wide. The ball is then transferred to the other target player at the other side, and then we've reversed it back to the person who originally made the pass out to the side, and then eventually we've transferred it to the other end. So the defending not so great on this activity, Ian.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's quite clear that the my two reds, despite my best efforts at teaching pressure and cover, have got horribly split, and the other team has scored. So for the purpose of this activity, part of your method is how long do you want the two to be in the area? So maybe they get out if they win the ball and dribble out or pass out, but I'd probably let them have 2 or 3 reps so they get some good repetition. This has been an unsuccessful repetition, but it's time for them to switch. So to their credit, at least, they know to get out the grid. And key here would be the reaction of these two players. How quickly can we then establish that pressure and cover relationship? And this represents a ball moving. And when do we make up ground as defenders? We make up ground as defenders as the ball is traveling. So I quite like this, because these two reds coming in from our left, our lower left, they cannot enter until the ball is played. But if they enter quickly enough, they could potentially intercept the line of the pass right away. So this is about reaction and how quickly we can organize. Again, smaller space will really be advantageous to the defenders initially, make it a little bit bigger in different ways. So you can do different things here to challenge your defenders and give them a really good workout. And then, of course, the whites switch to be the pressure and cover team, and the reds get their opportunity to possess.
Ian, what's your thoughts about the reds being able to step out and now start applying pressure outside the area?
Well, yeah, so we've worked on the principle so far, because of the conditions of the activity, that the reds can't actually go and tackle the ball, which is just fine, because with young players particularly, intercepting the pass and getting in the line of the pass is as important, if not more important, than being able to put in a game-winning tackle. As we increase the realism, however, either we bring the whites into the grid and we play in the confined area, that would be one option, or we allow the reds to lapse outside of the grid to put pressure on where they can actually dispossess right off the foot of the opponent.
Well, thank you, Ian, and thank you, coaches, for joining us on this edition of Give and Go Live.